This topic is an obsession of mine, and I am a deep believer in how our community has a level of collaboration that makes us unique. So nowhere else in the country is this conversation happening with the depth that we can have it here in Colorado because we live it. As you think about building a culture, because every company has a culture whether they know it or not, and you think about wanting it to be collaborative, what kind of definition would you put around that? How do you articulate it?
We all need to go back to our values. To build collaboration is one word, to build connections is another word, but it comes back to core things as a human about your values. By pulling back to your values and living them genuinely, then there's no hiding how easy it is to connect and build that culture.
For Google, it's about the top of our company living and breathing the values that we espouse. So you can say it, but if you're not living and breathing it, you're not seeing it and it's not being reinforced.
The why to me is getting to what motivates someone. So I often go back to that word. Some people use the word passion. What's your passion? To me, I've really settled recently on motivation. And there are several key motivators for us as humans, you know, and sometimes it's the mission work, how maybe we want to save the planet. Maybe we want to make some money. It changes at times in our career. But to me, the why is that we want to get, and we really want to unleash that deeper motivation as in our culture of our workforce. It's the human spirit being unleashed in a workplace that gets to result in something impactful in a product, in a service, in a nonprofit or for-profit, either one. So to me, it's matching that why with our key motivators.
So one of the hard parts of the collaboration is getting people to advocate for one another, which is a big issue in women in advancement, because surveys tend to show that men more naturally advocate for themselves. Women can easily advocate for someone else more than themselves. So that's one of the collaborative benefits on the gender dynamics. But another one is, can you get to realize limits in that environment as well? And let me offer a challenge. Netscape has a different philosophy. They say we're not a family, we're a team. And when someone no longer is performing at the high level of position we need to let them go. And the painful proof point was at one point the head of HR, who had embodied this philosophy, had to have a conversation with me Hastings saying, okay, it's time to let me go. And there's this great New York Times article that talks about that and interviews her. How do you think about that alternative perspective?
So I think failure is an important thing at Google, and it's something we have to embrace. So I think there's an element of making it okay. That's one thing I think we do relatively well. I think, if I'm really honest about this, I don't think Google has been particularly great at making those hard calls about when someone's not a great fit. For some reason, we're so proud of our attrition numbers that losing people just feels like pain. We would be well served to actually sort of look people in the eye and say, it's time for you to actually move on.
So it's hard to give people direct critical feedback, and if you don't, you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
We have a course we teach at CU called The Philosophy of Entrepreneurship, and we have a whole day where we read quiet, we read the article about Google's quest to build the perfect team, and we talk about this and how people interact differently in teams.
Yeah.
And that team leaders need to go in knowing that. I mean, that book has changed my leadership because I'm thinking 1/3 of people in a given environment are introverts. I want to hear what they have to say, and I can't let the equilibrium push them out.
It's not only keeping your culture, but it's the difference between what your structure looks like. Corporate America is very different than a startup. And so how do you grow and keep structure and keep people without having anarchy? And so I think it lends to the voices earlier is the fact that if you walk it, if you live it, and if you're willing to be human and flawed, every day get up and say, I didn't make my goals, or I'm challenging you, you can't hide that. That is genuine.
So we have this whole movement around, it's called Respect That, and we have become really focused on ensuring that behavior that is disrespectful, even if it's not malintentioned, that gets raised up. And again, it's synonymous, right? So this is where we do pretty well. But you can send a note to the Respect That alias and say, had this interaction, in this kind of meeting, felt like it was disrespectful, and then we deal with it.
So I want to end with a point that Greg had advertised, which is Amy Sturzberg is here with us in the Blackstone Charitable Foundation. And Amy, nice chance to acknowledge you publicly investing in this network. We had a premise about the ability to collaborate across Denver and Boulder and across different industry segments. So tech, natural foods, aerospace, energy, and healthcare. We haven't historically done that well across these segments. We haven't done great across Denver, Boulder. Over the last 2 to 4 years, and with Ben, what we call the Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network, making a real impact, there's a noticeable moving of the meter. And from that comes the collaborations in this community, helping each other solve problems, knowing that eventually there'll be a way that you'll want something, but you'll have built up karma points, if you will. And I hope that all of you guys get those karma points back for contributing, because you gave a lot of wonderful food for thought. Thank you for joining us tonight.